Welcome to the journey of growing slowly nowhere. I'm Ivan Ross. This is my true story, a tale of resilience, redemption, and the road that led me to where I am today. Let's dive in together. Before we get started, I quickly want to get something out of the way. Remember, I'm an author and not a professional podcaster. It can happen that I stumble over my words, and if I do, I'll quickly repeat the sentence. And if a background noise creeps in, remember that I'm recording this podcast from my home and not a professional studio. Thanks for understanding. Hello dear listeners, I'm Ivan Ross, the author with no name, known for my expertise in crafting chilling ghost suspense and supernatural tales. Take a moment of your precious time to listen to my story, a shocking reality that will captivate you. Brace yourselves, for it is about to get interesting. Let's begin this adventure without any more delay. Hold on tight as I take you back to Hillbrow, Johannesburg, in the late months of the early 1970s. This suburb, known for all, was a rundown neighborhood infested with crime and controlled by greasy mob bosses. The air was thick with tension and the stench of decay. My mother, who I only came to realize late in life was a narcissist. Her presence was suffocating like the heavy smoke that hung over the city. My brother was a genuine psychopath. The sound of his unsettling laughter still echoes in my mind. In the midst of this chaos, my father, a Scottish citizen, fought tirelessly against the apartheid regime. He was a courageous soul, but his defiance... He was a courageous soul, but his defiance came at a cost. Suddenly, he vanished without a trace, leaving me with unanswered questions that haunt me to this day. I won't bore you with the details of my childhood, but let's just fast forward. Against all odds, I fought tooth and nail in a relentless battle and managed to graduate from high school, defying all expectations. Meanwhile, my brother's life spiraled out of control. Expelled from schools, fired from jobs, his existence was a whirlwind of chaos and destruction. The sound of his violent outbursts still ring in my ears. In the midst of our turmoil, my mother, a social worker by trade, mysteriously accumulated great wealth. The scent of money and deceit lingered around her, like a sweet but rotten perfume. Her tactics, shrouded in secrecy, remain unknown to me. I suspect her seductive allure played a role in her success. She indulged in relationship with wealthy married men as if it were a twisted hobby. One such affair involved my best friend's father, who lived in a grand home across the road from us. The tension between my mother and my best friend's mother was palpable. It filled the air with an uncomfortable electricity, like a storm waiting to break. My mother reveled in the pain she caused those women, her victims. Let's try that again. My mother reveled in the pain she caused to these women, her victims. The suffering she inflicted was an open secret, straining our neighborhood with a sense of betrayal and resentment. Stay tuned for more, dear readers. The tale of my life unfolds, revealing the intricate web of deceit, pain and survival that shaped me into the very person I am today. Despite my mother's protests, I decided to join the army, fully aware of her codependency issues. The reasons were valid. Firstly, I wanted to mature like a fine wine before pursuing further studies. Secondly, it was the final year in our country where military service was compulsory, as the Afrikaner government, on the verge of collapse, faced mounting external pressures. However, my mother, consumed by a longing for my absent brother and a reversion to being alone, vehemently objected. She threatened to use my study funds against me if I enlisted. Undeterred, I packed my bags and boarded the army train, nicknamed Wors Machine, in Afrikaans symbolizing the cramped conditions with the sausage-like carriages. As the train whistle pierced the air at Kimberley Station, I peered out of the window, hoping for a farewell from someone. Yet, as expected, the platform stood empty. At that very moment, my mother lingered on the beach, flaunting her yellow bikini alongside a wealthy man, one of her victims. Ironically, it was during my time in the monotonous army that my love for literature blossomed. Unlike those around me, I relished every moment. The army became my sanctuary, shielding me from the reach of my mother and brother. Over the next 2 years, they made no effort to contact me, not even a birthday wish or a care package like my comrades received from their loved ones. Nevertheless, I rejoiced, for I had an abundance of books at my disposal. Like an insatiable beast, I scoured every library, stacking my arms with literature, a luxury I'd never known. However, my solitary tendencies did not go unnoticed by those with brass epaulets, and I was soon called to meet the army psychologist. In a nutshell, she became my first girlfriend, and we shared our intimate moments together. She was a petite blonde, genuinely fond of me. Our first date involved shooting pool balls. But, hold on a second, what was her diagnosis of my condition? I solemnly admit that I have no clue, as our time was consumed by intimacy, reading books, and playful moments. Shh, the secret remained hidden until now. 2 years later, I arrived back home, greeted by an eerily quiet house, ready to resume my studies at college. The scent of familiarity wafted through the air as I stepped inside. Lisbeth, our beloved household servant, opened the front door, enveloping me in a warm embrace. Her touch was reassuring, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of affection for her. She informed me that my mother was out of town and had left a letter for me. Excitement rushed through me as I rushed to my bedroom. Let's try that again. Excitement rushed through me as I rushed to my bedroom, my footsteps echoing through the empty hallways. I hastily threw my bags onto the bed, the soft lining muffled by the plush duvet. My eyes eagerly scanned the room, searching for the elusive letter. Finally, I spotted it, lying there without an envelope. Stinginess radiated from its exposed state. My heart pounded in my chest, and my hands trembled slightly as I unfolded the letter, the paper rustling under my touch. The words written in Afrikaans stared back at me. "I told you," my mother's voice echoed through the ink. "I will use your tuition money if you join the army." And I did. I'm in France on holiday, with the name of the victims. "I will be in Paris for 6 weeks. Find a job or move out. You have 2 weeks. Unsurprisingly, the contents of the letter failed to surprise me. I crumpled it up, the sound of paper crunching in my hand, and tossed it into the bin. Determination filled my being as I made my way to the study, the creaking floorboards accompanying each step I took. I reached for the phone, the plastic surface cool against my fingertips, eager to find a job and escape the suffocating environment. However, as I reached for the phone, my eyes caught sight of another handwritten letter from my mother. Its presence felt mocking, a reminder of her control. "Phone calls cost money. I know you saved up during your time in the army. Leave the change on the counter." The bitterness of her words hung heavy in the air. I couldn't help but scoff at her assumption. If she knew the extent of my savings, she would have never left. With determination fueling my actions, I packed my bags, the sound of zippers closing echoing in the room, and left, finding my way to a commune. Dear listeners, please forgive me for this short deviation from my journey. The words may sound simple, but it was anything but easy to leave the house I had grown to love with all my heart. As a young teenager, I had a peculiar habit that I was unaware of at the time. With my mother often working late or spending evenings with her lovers, I would become a scavenger, roaming the streets in search of food. On this particular day, I found myself on a long street lined with grand houses and expansive gardens. My eyes darted from one house to another, reveling at the majestic details. It reminded me of my home in Durban, the city we had left behind for the similar city filled with mine rubble. Then my gaze landed upon a sign next to a foreboding gate, Klein Boland, meaning Little Cape Winelands in English. My lips parted in awe, uttering a silent wow. Intrigued, I felt a magnetic pull drawing me closer to the low boundary wall, allowing me a glimpse into the garden. It was a paradise. Leaning against the brick wall, I soaked in every majestic detail, my mouth agape. The growls of hunger in my stomach became a distant murmur as my attention was captivated by the mesmerizing sight. Suddenly, the lady of the manor, whom we shall call Auntie H, caught sight of me. With an elegant wave of hand, she invited me inside, saying, "Come in." Her beauty made my knees weak, and to add to the Her beauty made my knees weak, and to add to the magic of the moment, she spoke English. She introduced me to her two sons, E and N, and we spent the afternoon splashing about in the crystal clear swimming pool, indulging in delicious snacks and homemade lemonade. For a brief period, I felt like I was in heaven. Over time, the estate's ownership shifted, and my mother eventually became the proud owner when my new family left for the new hometown. A decision I deeply regret, as it meant that in addition to my schoolwork, I would now have to take on the role of full-time gardener. My curiosity had earned me a fair reward, a mix of satisfaction and remorse for the embarrassment I had caused my mother. Nonetheless, my unwavering instinct to scavenge and prowl for food brought into contact. Let's try that again. Nonetheless, my unwavering instinct to scavenge and prowl for food brought me into contact with intriguing people, some of whom were part of family my mother had always wished I would avoid. I often wonder where my mother got the money for such a property, but I know I will never find out. Regardless, I'm grateful for that experience, and now it is time to continue on my journey. A friend's dad, aware of my valuable information technology experience gained during my time in the army, swiftly contacted me. He informed me that the local government was actively reaching out for help with the decentralization efforts, specifically for benefit payout grants. Before I continue, let me take a moment to remind you of the civil unrest that plagued our country just before Nelson Mandela's release from prison. The tension was palpable, especially among white Afrikaners who feared losing their positions to qualified black individuals. I was told that even my English father faced difficulties in finding a job. I silently honor his perseverance wherever he may be. Returning to my story, I agreed the job opportunity and conveyed my interest to my friend's father. He arranged an interview and informed me that I would face a panel of experts the following day. I couldn't help but give them a nickname, the Boer Mafia, or Boer Mafia in English, the true beneficiaries of apartheid. And so he invited me over for a beer to prep me. The dimly lit room smelled of stale cigarette smoke and cold beer. The wooden table was sticky to the touch, evidence of countless spills and neglect. He leaned in close, his voice a low rumble, as he shared his instructions. I should tell the panel of experts that I am a member of the NGK, NG Kerk, meaning Dutch Reformed Church. If they ask, I should also mention that I play rugby. And the most delicate part, if they inquire about my surname, Ross, I should confidently explain that it is actually Roos, a popular Afrikaans surname, but there was a typo on my ID book. He lent me his son's church clothing, the fabric crisp and freshly pressed. The familiar routine from my army days kicked in, and I meticulously made my bed and tidied my small room. Arriving at the interview, I settled onto a cold wooden bench in a long, brightly lit corridor. The constant ticking of the clock on the wall marked the passing seconds, minutes and hours. Eventually, the lunchtime break arrived, and the boisterous laughter of the Boer Mafia spilled into the hallway, their flushed faces revealing their indulgence in alcohol. Finally, a voice boomed calling out my name. Ivan Roos! The deep resonance startled me, but I held firm to the deception we had planned. Though my last name is Ross, this deceit was carefully orchestrated. I stuck to my fabricated story, relaying everything my friend's dad had instructed me. To my astonishment, I was offered the job and started working the very next day. As time passed, I found myself immersed in my new role, forging strong friendships and even encountering my first actual girlfriend. The office buzzed with activity, the sounds of ringing phones and keyboard clicks creating a rhythmic symphony. Despite my accomplishments, I couldn't help but feel a pang of frustration. My mother, who had returned from her vacation in France, had yet to reach out to me, unaware of my recent success. Yearning to share my story, I dialed my friend's dad, seeking solace in his company and a celebratory drink. That moment marked a turning point in my life. We sat together sipping our beers, our bond growing stronger. He became the father figure I had never known, guiding me, even in the art of deception, to secure a job. And though I cherished my newfound employment and the connection I had made, little did I know that a complicated love affair with a married woman would soon test the boundaries of my newfound happiness. But that's a tale of another time. My fingers ached from typing, and I craved the comfort of a beer. Let's try that again, sorry. My fingers ache from typing and I crave the comfort of a cold beer. And that, my dearest listener, is how my journey of becoming the most destitute and industrious person I knew began. As the sun set on that final day of apartheid, my life took a turn I could never have anticipated. The shadows of my past were about to collide with an unexpected revelation. What came next changed everything. Thank you for listening, and until next time, my friend, stay tuned, for the story is about to heat up to a sizzle. Keep an eye out for the full story to uncover the depths of my journey's secrets and triumphs. Growing Slowly Nowhere is available on Amazon Kindle and all other digital platforms, allowing readers to access the full story. Farewell, my friend, but only for now.